Hi everyone, welcome into this week's My Weekly CBS Fix. This week's parsha is Parshas Vayeshev. We'll talk about that, and we will also talk about the holiday of Chanukah that is starting on Matzah Shabbos this coming Saturday night. And in this week's parsha, we learn about Joseph, who at the time that he was 17 years old, was about to embark upon a journey that most people would have thrown it all away, would have given up. And to quickly highlight a few things that happened to him, he was sold as a slave by his brothers. He was thrown into a pit. He was sold a few times to the Midianites, to the Arabs. They all had their chance of trying to sell him, and finally he ended up as a slave in Potiphar's house. And the great Joseph, who came from the great house of Jacob, is now finding himself as a slave, and he gets enticed by Potiphar's wife to do a sin with her, and he has to run away from her, and ultimately that led him to the deepest of all the dungeons, and over there, down there, he ended up interpreting a few people's dreams, and he eventually was called up to interpret the king's dream, and he was made viceroy over the entire land of Egypt. That is the very, very short version. And the lesson that we have to learn from that is that everything that he went through, he easily could have pointed a finger. And he could have said, it's not my fault, my brother sold me, here I am down in the worst country morality-wise in Egypt. I can go off and I can do whatever I want, I can be whoever I want, I can do whatever I want, I'm entitled, I'm allowed to, it's not my fault, I'm a victim over here. And nobody can blame me for the type of life that I lead, and it's too bad. It was the perfect age for all that to happen, and not only did that not happen, quite the contrary. He ended up becoming Yosef HaTzadik, Yosef the righteous, and he ended up being the longest king that any Jewish king ever was. He wasn't appointed to be it officially as a king by Hashem or by a prophet, but nevertheless, he was a king. He reigned for about 80 years, and because of that, the Jewish people were able to thrive very, very well in the land of Egypt. So quite the contrary actually happened. And many, many people go through different trials and tests in their life. And the question you have to ask yourself, as I heard actually a class from Rabbi Wallerstein on this incredibly important subject, is are you going to be the victim or are you going to be the victor? And the cards that you're dealt with in life is not up to you. They are what they are. The question is, what are you going to do? You're going to fold? Or are you going to fool everybody and you're going to walk away with the entire pot? You got to play a good hand, or you're going to fold immediately. And that's up to you. The entire choice is up to you. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, it's hard, but it's all about the struggle. And at the end, you can be just like Joseph, be an incredibly successful person. You know, inside all of us is incredible powers that Hashem put inside of us. And I don't mean superpowers, but in a certain sense, I mean superpowers. Because we're depending on the situation that a person was dealt with, you can actually become super. That's an incredible. You can be a hero to many people as well. For you to be able to overcome everything that you overcame, whether it was bad family, whether it was drugs, whether it was not having any education, and you make yourself to the top, you are a superhero. And everybody has inside of them different powers that just lay dormant. As a matter of fact, I heard from Rabbi Daniel Stelm, an old friend of mine. He was talking about the idea of how things lay dormant inside a person. He mentioned Death Valley. Death Valley is called Death Valley because everything is dead over there and nothing grows. However, in 2004, and possibly other times as well, there was incredible rains, and lo and behold, the entire Death Valley was covered with flowers and with other greens, and Death Valley at that time was incredibly beautiful. And what did we learn from that? We learned from that really Death Valley was never really Death Valley. It was just Dormant Valley, and we have to sprinkle a little rain on there, and the potential of Death Valley can come through. And people think that, me, I'm nothing. I came from nothing, I'm dead. And the answer is not true. Sprinkle a little education on yourself. Sprinkle a little hope. Sprinkle a little, I can do it. Sprinkle a little, I'm a victor over here. Not a survivor. And not a victim, I'm a survivor. And a lot of people ask, why did the Holocaust happen? I can't answer that question, certainly not in a 4, 5, 6 minute video. But one thing I can tell you, do you know how many people suffered in the Holocaust, but at the end of the day were survivors of the Holocaust and not victims of the Holocaust? There are so many people that pulled through and put their lives together and didn't say, I'm a victim, I don't have to do anything now. No, they not only did they make something of themselves, but they in fact taught other people Torah. They in fact taught other people about Hashem. Even though Hashem left them, they became incredible people. And I don't mean just great rabbis. I mean even simple people. Because there's no such thing as a simple person. You want to remain simple? You can be simple. You want to be dormant? You can be dormant. Or do you want to be great? You can be great. Joseph suffered everything, suffered from everything, but he chose to be great. And when we talk about the holiday of Chanukah, the holiday of Chanukah teaches us the same thing. It's very possible that a person should look at the holiday of Chanukah and see a bunch of 8 little candles. What are 8 little candles on a little menorah represent? You can't even see it. And if that's your outlook, then you're right, you're not going to see it. But when you look at that, a tiny little flame can make the biggest fire in the world. All it takes is a tiny little spark. And if you want, you can make that spark into this massive flame. And everybody has a spark inside themselves. That spark is your neshama. That spark is waiting to be flamed at any time. And you could do it. And you could say, who am I? I grew up in a situation where my parents didn't know anything about Judaism. They didn't know anything about a Torah. They didn't know any rabbis, and they didn't have anything to help them. And so therefore, I'm just going to follow in the same footsteps. I'm going to be just that tiny little spark. But everybody knows this is not true. You want to grow, you can easily grow. You start educating yourselves, and many of you people maybe actually know people that started off small, but they eventually fanned that tiny little spark into this massive flame. And as you sit around the Hanukkah candles, and you're looking at the flames, just look at them as tiny little flames, but realize that those tiny little flames have this massive potential to become great fires. And a fire represents our spirituality, and we can fan the flames of our spirituality incredibly. And that's a lesson we should learn from Joseph. That's a lesson we should learn from many things in life that we thought were dormant, and we thought that people wouldn't be heroes, and they failed in so many areas. And they became incredibly great people. And you could do the same thing. This is not just hyperbole, but rather this is something that everybody out there listening can certainly become. So go become that great person. Have a wonderful Hanukkah. Hopefully your nights will be lit up, and hopefully you'll allow your candle to be able to light up other people's lives as well. Good Shabbos. Have a freilich Hanukkah.